I know that a lot of information has been discussed regarding certification, but I will be presenting E53 Asset Management, another form where standards can be developed and utilized and implemented. Again, I'll be going over a brief overview of E53 and how standards are developed within ASTM, as well as going over additional information on ASTM as well. So next slide, Nick, thank you. So ASTM E53 Asset Management has been formed in 2000, the calendar year date of 2000. We have over 170 members with 12 different countries represented. We have 11 technical subcommittees with a jurisdiction of 33 standards. This committee is significantly active. We meet every other month via virtually, and the scope has recently been updated in the last year and a half. The main takeaway of the scope is the general area of the interest of the committee will include standards to support all aspects of personal property asset management, hereafter referred to simply as asset or asset management, including systems for the management of industrial, federal, state, and local government personnel assets, as well as educational and medical institution assets. The main takeaway of the scope is the work of this committee will be coordinated with other ASTM committees and other organizations having mutual interests. Next slide. Here's a list of all of E53 technical subcommittees. I'm not going to go through every subcommittee. We had recently just added E5305 asset leadership. Of course, we have a wide range of sustainability of property management, ISO management activity, and US government property management. Executive is simply administrative work. One of the things with ASTM International is we are one of the largest SDOs, but it's the scale of our involvement influence that counts for more. We comply with the 6 WTO principles for international standards, development, transparency, openness, consensus, relevance, coherence, development dimension. We work across political, cultural, and geographic borders, recognizing expertise, not country of origin. This promotes a massive range of activity and phenomenal exchange of knowledge, trusted and known for market relevance and technical quality. Our standards are the choice of many global industries, typically around 49% outside of the USA. We also believe in the power of standards to inspire and enable people and economies. Our global outreach activities increase understanding about standards and their application, and our Memorandum of Understanding programs provide intangible to developing economies. Member participation around the world is what makes ASTM truly an international standards development organization. ASTM opens its doors to all interested individuals and organizations from around the globe that want to participate in the Society's consensus process for standard development. This process ensures that all interested parties have an equal vote in determining a standard's content. ASTM's enduring philosophy of consensus without borders helps make ASTM responsive and relevant to the needs of the global marketplace. As a result, more than 40% of ASTM's standards are sold outside of these states. This is an overall WBS structure on how a technical committee would work within ASTM. Typically, you have E53 as your main committee, then you have your subcommittees, which I presented previously, and then below that, you can form actual task groups. Those task groups can actually formulate and develop further technical content to be projected into the subcommittee and then up to the main committee level. Standards are published documents that establish specifications and procedures designed to ensure the reliability of the materials, products, methods, and or service people use every day. Standards address a range of issues, including but not limited to various protocols that help ensure product functionality and compatibility, facilitate interoperability, and support consumer safety and public health. Typically within ASTM, one of the things that I'd like to just reinforce is the time frame that ASTM allows a technical person to develop a standard. Once that standard is developed, we'd like to encourage maintenance on it, but that standard can be valid at any time based on industry, organization needs, or if information needs to be updated within that standard. We allowed a mandatory 5-year review, but again, that standard can be validated at any time, and that typically we provide an efficient time frame to get that standard published. So if a standard goes through the consensus process, sub, main, and society review, typically, depending, that standard can be published within a 1 to 2 year range. Next slide. These are just highlight an overview of benefits of being a part of ASTM. Obviously, everyone has a voice in the standard that affects the bottom line. We provide leadership training, task group with peers, additional support for meetings, interactive with industry experts and leaders, and additional opportunities to conduct webinars and or meetings at any time. It's very cost effective with the $75 membership, which includes the free volume, instead of actually just purchasing a single standard. Next slide. Again, here's a general overview of different levels of balloting. You have your subcommittee ballot, then your main committee ballot and society review, and then the final stages of COS. Each stage has a check and balance point. So if a new standard is developed, it has to go through subcommittee. That standard will be open on a ballot for X number of days. So anybody that is a non-voter or voting person can review the technical contact and either provide additional comments or negatives. Negatives are never perceived as a actual negative term per se, but allows additional input to further enhance the collaboration improvement of the standard. Next slide. This is just an overall scale of ASTM platform for regarding balance of interest within a subcommittee and a main committee. Classified technical committees are required to be imbalanced. Voting producers cannot outweigh the combined voting user and general interest. This allows a little bit more of a balance between the two. This just kind of illustrates the scale. We don't want to have one particular organization have an overpower of a specific standard. We really want to ensure that there is a collaboration and balance between each sub and main committee. Next slide. Of course, voting rights and voting versus non-voting, one official vote per interest company, all is equivalent to voting and non-voting members. So if you have all are welcome to participate in the technical discussions. All members receive a ballot and are eligible to vote on technical issues. All negatives are considered the same way. So if you are a part of a committee and you do not have an official vote and you have a negative on a sub or main ballot, that negative needs to be addressed. That will blockade the standard so that the technical information needs to be appropriately addressed. Next slide. Member participation from around the world is what makes ASTM a truly international standards developed organization. ASTM opens its doors to all interested individuals and organizations from around the globe that want to participate in the Society's consensus process for standards development. This process ensures that all interested parties have an equal vote in determining standards content. ASTM's enduring philosophy of consensus without borders helps make ASTM responsive and relevant to the needs of the global marketplace. As a result, more than 40% of ASTM standards are sold outside the US. This, again, is another diagram on how standards can be developed and go through the voting process. So of course, you don't have to be a member to be in the task group, but you can provide additional input to the subcommittee. And once that standard is developed at the subcommittee level and proceeds to a subcommittee ballot, you would require 60% return required and 2/3 voting affirmative required to move on to the main and society review. The main committee is 60% return required and 90% affirmative required, and society review gets it that allows everyone to review the standard, and then the final review and approval of procedures is conducted at CO, Committee on Standards. Next slide. This is a broad overview. If a negative is received on a specific standard, there are 6 different resolutions of a negative vote. You can find it persuasive, you can withdraw it, you can withdraw with editorial changes, the negative vote can be non-related, non-persuasive, or the negative vote can be previously considered. Typically, when the vote is found persuasive, then that means that standard will be removed from the ballot to allow the technical contact and sub-chair to actually revise the standard to go back onto a sub and or concurrent ballot to be reworked. A negative can be withdrawn at any time, and typically withdrawn with editorial changes is very minor. If it is technical related, then it will need to be revised. Non-related and non-persuasive is typically you will require 2/3 affirmative of the votes to find that vote non-related and non-persuasive towards the technical contact. And previously considered is typically when that negative vote has been casted multiple times by an individual. Next slide. And I would like to thank all ALN for their partnership, as well as providing the opportunity to present ASTM E53 Asset Management. All standards are important to develop and to implement. If you have any additional questions, please do not hesitate to communicate with me or Rich Culberson, Chair of E53.